Hello and welcome to our presentation. My name is Brad and these are my classmates Tom, Cheyenne and Jeremy. We're presenting our findings on the statements of service performance for the University of Canterbury and the University of Waikato, with a focus on their faithful representation, understandability and completeness. The purpose of this presentation is to highlight key differences for each of the university's use of these three reporting principles due to their differences in student numbers, government funding and accounting policies. I'll give a brief introduction to the accounting principles, the letter on upcoming changes to tertiary education institution reporting, and to the universities themselves. Tom will be going through the key findings from the service performance statement of the University of Waikato, who will then pass it on to Cheyenne, who will be covering the same but for the University of Canterbury, leaving Jeremy to conclude our presentation. As accounting students, we're all familiar with the accounting principles and understand their importance in showing a true and fair view of the entity. Faithful representation, also known as reliability, is where the statements are free from error, omission, bias, and that they show a fair representation of the university's performance. Completeness is where the statements show all significant activities regarding the performance of the university, and understandability is where the measures and commentary are clearly formatted in a way that engages the users of the statements so that they can understand the key points surrounding the university. A recent letter sent by the Controller and Auditor General outlining the new requirements for tertiary education institution reporting states that this statement of service performance will now have to comply with GAP and also outlines the importance of performance reporting principles. The statement of service performance is particularly important for showing performance measures on successive groups of students and the university. This means that the Auditor General's audit opinion will now reflect whether the statement of service performance complies with GAP and will reflect a modified or adverse opinion if it does not. The letter goes on to recommend some other measurements that will enhance the report's compliance with reporting principles. These recommendations include measurements for employee or student satisfaction, measurements for research products, for example, research income, recognition and publications, and measurements for broader social, economic and cultural outcomes. I'll now introduce the two universities. As of 2018, the University of Canterbury has had 14,070 equivalent full-time students enrolled. The Statement of Service Performance introduces three priority objectives for service performance. The first objective is challenge, which aims to improve the educational performance and participation of students. The second is concentrate, which aims to enhance the quality and impact of research outputs. Finally, the third is connect, which aims to maintain strong, collaborative and mutually beneficial stakeholder relations. The University of Canterbury has an impressive QS rating of 227, making it one of the top 250 universities worldwide. As of 2018, the University of Waikato has had 10,246 equivalent full-time students enrolled. On an interesting note, when compared to the University of Canterbury, Waikato has not stated any overall objectives for its statement of service performance and has instead stated a smaller goal relating to each of the performance measurements used. The University of Waikato has a QS ranking of 266, which is slightly behind Canterbury, but is impressive nonetheless. I'll now pass it on to Tom, who will speak about the University of Waikato.
The University of Waikato's annual report has a 10-page statement of service performance, which highlights many different targets that the university had hoped to achieve and then the actual result alongside the previous year's results. An example of this is the first subcategory, which is the volume of ministry-funded or student achievement component eligible EFTS delivered, in which the University of Waikato had a target number of 8,800, however only achieved 8,409. In total, there were 17 subcategories with 29 goals, and each of them had small yet insightful pieces of commentary underneath to give the reader some further information and context to the numbers. In regards to understandability, the University of Waikato's Statement of Service Performance passes easily. The graphs provided are well labelled, and anyone reading the annual report would have no issues understanding the information. As you can see here by the previous year's results, this year's target, and then this year's actual result. There are a few abbreviations used throughout the statement of service performance. However, this is not an issue, as they are often explained after the first use, and if not, there is a glossary of terms and abbreviations at the end of the annual report. The format is also very clean and easy to look at. The statement of service performance is also complete to a high standard. The University of Waikato has all of the necessary categories required in order for it to be complete in accordance with the generally accepted accounting principles. Also, as mentioned previously, after each category is given along with the target and whether they achieve that target, insightful commentary is provided which gives context to the numbers. In terms of faithful representation, there is an audit from Audit New Zealand which contains some very important pieces of information, including that in the auditor's opinion, the statement of service performance of the university and group on pages 42 to 51 presents fairly and in all material respects the university and group service performance achievements measured against the proposed outcomes described in the investment plan for the year ended 31st of December 2018. The auditor is independent of the university, meaning that they have no relationship and no interest in the university. This is as clear as it comes for faithful representation, and including the audit leaves the reader confident that they are not being misled. I'll now hand over to Cheyenne to talk about the University of Canterbury.
The annual report of the University of Canterbury dedicates almost 20 pages to the statement of service performance. The statement contains mainly 3 parts divided by 3 objectives. Each part includes a particular objective, some indicators followed by commentary, and performance information direct to that objective. In terms of understandability, the overall format of the report is simple to understand. Each part starts with an objective which is clearly presented in a way of headline and followed by a group of indicators, assisted with some commentary under each indicator, and some paragraphs of performance information at the end. The words in the report is reasonably understandable, even though there are some Maori names that may cause trouble in reading, but it doesn't really affect the users to receive the information the university wants to deliver. Regarding to completeness, under the requirement for performance reporting, what is expected to achieve and the actual performance need to be set out in the report. The university has done this by providing the objectives and targets in the report and display some comparable current and previous year's figure in the indicator. The indicators also show various aspects of commitments to the objectives. The activities or strategies causing the commitment also given in the performance information. All of these together will give a complete view to the report. In terms of the faithful representation, as set out in the performance reporting requirement, the idea is almost all about the true and fair view of the report. In order to assure that the report is true and fair, various relative commitments having impact on the goals have been provided, along with a range of significant activities that might have put effort on the achievement. Commentary fairly represent relative measure. What the commentary talking about can fairly relates to what information the users might receive from the measure. In the performance information section, various sorts of information are given separately in respect to the different aspects of commitment mentioned in the measure. The figure included in the report can be concluded as highly free to errors and truly presented. For example, under the objective of enhancing the quality and impact of research outputs, the graduate enrollment is said to have impact on the objective. The performance information mentions there is a 6.1% increase in postgraduate enrollment, which is in line with the postgraduate enrollment, changing from 2926 to 3105, showing in the indicator. Now I will pass it to Jeremy to make a conclusion.
As we have heard from Cheyenne with the University of Canterbury and Tom with the University of Waikato, performance reporting is a good criteria to show the usefulness of funding and resources the university needs and has through the means of enrolment figures and success rates to university funding and revenue for students going through the university at undergraduate, postgraduate and research levels. The length of the performance report from Canterbury is comprehensive with explanations of the sections and their compliance with each of the three principles: faithful representation, completeness and understandability. They are all covered with the detail that is required, showing the greater picture, which is the aim of the performance reporting letter. Waikato's report provides information needed to gain a similar understanding to the statement of service reporting from Canterbury, but in half the paper with a significantly lesser amount of text, outlining and dividing the specific aspects of the report. Waikato's more condensed approach to meeting this reporting standard is still comprehensive and compliant, meeting the GAP standard. The auditor's report from both universities provides very similar information disclosing the accuracy and compliance with the generally accepted accounting practices, which is good to see as this standard is in effect for the 2019 reporting year onwards, and both have a complete audited statement of service performance for their 2018 report, which includes comparisons with 3 years prior aims and figures with a greater inclusion of information each year. So although it appears that the Canterbury Statement of Service Performance Report is more comprehensive than that of the Waikato University, they both meet the requirement under the generally accepted accounting practices according to the auditor's reports. So along with both universities meeting the three principles that we looked into, understandability, completeness and faithful representation, all other performance measures outlined in the letter are also complied with, making these reports complete, fit for purpose and appropriate for future operation. And this concludes our analysis for today. So thank you for listening, and we'll go on to the questions. The first question from Victoria University is, what do you believe the report will look like going forward? Do you think the GAP requirements will change them at all? The criteria for reporting will change as the standard is implemented this year. As people use it, better ways of recording and reporting the information will appear. Efficiency and understandability of the report will become more clear, and only the necessary information will be produced in a more flowing and clear statement. The reports will most likely become standardised as the method of collecting data will improve, and the method that is most efficient will be used by all parties who need to report under the statement. And for the second part of the question, the GAP requirements may evolve over time to create a more focused, refined look at the required information in the statement of service performance. But the standard and the practices which govern it will be at a stage where they are covering the necessary information to the level it needs to be for the stakeholders' needs currently. The information required might be increased over time if the standard is believed to add value to the statement of service performance. The reports will not change due to the new GAP requirements, as early adoption was allowed, and the information provided by Canterbury and the Waikato universities is already up to the GAP required standard, so they will not need to make any current changes.
This is the question from Massey University. Given the fact that Waikato did not achieve their goals and that their target was significantly higher than the previous year's results, does this show that their goals were unrealistic?
The goal setting example I showed previously in the presentation so that the audience could see what the formatting and tables look like. The table I showed was the first in the statement of service performance and was not entirely reflective of the University of Waikato's goal setting ability. However, after further review, from the 17 subcategories listed, there were 29 targets set. Out of the 29, 18 of these targets were met and 11 were not. This means that the University of Waikato had a 62% success rate on their goals. From this statement alone, you would think the university's goal setting is not up to standard. However, if you go deeper into the numbers, they were extremely close in 9 of these goals, with all of them achieving 94% of their goal or better. The only 2 that the university missed out on by a significant margin were qualification completion rates for ministry funded or student achievement component eligible Māori students, which was missed by 16%. The other was the qualification rates for ministry funded or student achievement component eligible Pacific students, which was missed by 26%. So coming back to the question, I do not believe that their goals are unrealistic. However, they will be slightly unhappy that they missed out on 9 of their goals by a very small margin.
Here's the last question from Otago. What do you think are the main users of statements of service performance for your given universities and why? Well, I think all the stakeholders would be interested in a statement of service performance, not just for the universities allocated to my team, but also most other universities, because most universities are providing pretty much the same services, which include education, administration, and research services. There are 3 groups of stakeholders I think would be the main users of the statement of service performance. The first group would be students. Students can be deemed as the client of the university, as the university needs to provide them educational service and collect money from them. Tuition fee would be a big part of revenue for the university. Every student must have their own expectation on the university when they choose to go to the university. So they would like to see how well the university has performed. The statement of service performance of the University of Canterbury and Waikato have both given a big part to talk about the output of educational performance, the information on the student enrollment each year, student retention rate, and course and qualification retention completion rate can give students an overview about the educational performance. The second group of the main users would be the employees of a university. For example, faculty and the administrative staffs. These people are someone work for the university and receive money from the university. The university would have expectation on their performance. To keep their job, they would need to satisfy the university's requirement. The statement of service performance can tell how well they performed and what they could improve to align to the university's expectation. Generally, the qualification and course completion rate and research output can indicate the faculty's performance. For the administrative staffs, they can assess how well the general performance is by making comparison between target figure, current year and previous year's figure, and figure out what can be improved as well. The third group of main users might be donors. The statement of service performance of the 2 universities both show some information on research and development output. Some of the research and development funding might come from donors. They would like to see what the university have achieved and how they performed in the research area to decide whether it is worth to donate the money. So here are the 3 main users of the statement of service performance of the university, and that's my answer to the question.